'Cause there's something about you, baby, so right. And I just can't live without you, do, baby. Tonight, well, level 42, level 42, dong, 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 the guy, and then the lead singer, level 42, the old slap bass. You see a thing last night about the funk, Larry Graham, Sly and the Family Stone, he was the first guy to do the old slap bass, dong, 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 James Brown, see, it was on BBC 2 or BBC 4, James Brown's on a story of funk, George Clinton, looking great, isn't he? He's hilarious, absolutely brilliant. George Clinton and the LP Funk, Parliament Funkadelic, and song about how Larry Graham did the slap. James Brown, take it to the bridge, 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 take it to the bridge. The bridge under Gilmour Street Station. Is it perhaps the bridge under Gilmour Street Station? I used to watch Rangers at Ibrox, and I would get when I first stopped going on the Stephen Smithsonian bus, getting that kind of your mid to late teens, start going with your pals and all that, went a wee bit rebellious, a wee bit wild, and we would start to get the train for Ruston, or they'd go to Salkits, and up we'd go, and the train would go through Gilmour Street. That was the second last stop for Glasgow Central, underground out to Ibrox. It was all fun and games until the last day of the 85-86 season when Celtic were actually sealing the league title in dramatic fashion at Love Street. And the train's gone back to we're getting the train back down the road and it's going to get to Gilmour Street, and it was mobbed. It was just a sea of green and white. It'd been a rainy day as well, so it was, oh God. The smell was coming off the station and things like that. It was just after it was just as a that kind of mist heaving off the top of stuff. It was very pleasant. No, it's raining. This stuff's it's evaporating. The folks' body odour and stuff like that is starting to come off in the hot station after being out in the rain for so long. It always rains, and basically it's the cotton. It's good for the cotton, isn't it? It's good for the cotton. That's why they made the cotton there, the Paisley pattern, stuff like that. But it was in that station, and you're then you're then above the bridge. You know, it's no take it to the bridge. You're on the bridge because the bridge is all train lines, isn't it, that are going down the way, going down to Ardrossan, or then some of them veer off towards Guruk and Greenock and that kind of stuff. But I don't ever want to feel like I felt that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. That's Flea. You know, Flea, the Red Hot Chili Pepper Flea. You know, I don't ever want to feel how I felt that day. Flea, and he did the dong 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 dong. Larry Graham, he's still doing the slap bass thing, isn't he? Flea, and he didn't ever want to go under the bridge, and now went under the bridge later on. I don't know, maybe same year actually, probably. I think it was 86-87 season. It's 86, 87. I had my wee dalliance with the ICF and all that, just a kid, I didn't know what I was doing. No fight. And I discovered, and it was a game at Fir Park, Motherwell. But I was like, nah, I don't fancy this. This doesn't feel right. But yeah, at the same time, you're going about the streets in Ardrossan and Salkits, and you couldn't hang about with your pals without having to get into fights. You had to fight for your right to party. Literally, you're trying to go. I remember going down to that was a dance or something like that, a disco in the Civic Centre in Ardrossan. They were all like kind of 16, 17, and just mass fights in the streets. There was only like 3 or 4 of us, our wee squad, and we're having to, my mates turned up late, or they'd been having a few cans in the house, and they just appeared out of the blue to save me and my other mate. We'd get attacked, and I'm having to hit these guys and all that. It's guys at the same school as us and all that bit. So just because you're in a gang, everybody's in gangs, and you're fighting, and I just thought, I'm going to end up getting arrested just for walking the streets. So I actually going to the fitba. But I loved the fitba, and fighting folk at the fitba just seemed I could never really get into it. But I remember then it was the LSD, Parliament Funkadelic, the P Funk, very very trippy. George Clinton talking about that last night in that programme, absolutely hilarious. But the only time LSD, drop the LSD, take the LSD was the ICF. It was at the Love Street division, and we're talking about a car park. It was a midweek game. Some car park that was under that bridge. You come out the bridge at Gilmour Station, and the station car park, and you double back in yourself to go to Old Love Street. When you sit there and played at Love Street, and it was running about car parks or something there. And so everybody just wearing the same gear. Is that them there? Is that us? Is that what it's? And I was like, I don't even want to get into this. It's just just seems kind of just didn't feel it at all. So that was me. It was a bit of growing up going on there. But I don't ever want to feel like I felt that day. No, under the bridge. Take it to the bridge, and the other bridge is it St James, Paisley St James. Is that the Paisley St James? That's the train station that you'd get to the new St Mirren Stadium, and I've been under that bridge. I took it to that bridge. I remember standing there for ages under that bridge. You got to walk over the platform to the other side if you're going back into Glasgow like myself. But it was after Scotland under 21s had beat Kazakhstan. Under 21s, Leon King's playing. Connor Barron, who wasn't a Rangers player at that point in time, I don't think he was on the front of the programme, full Scotland kit. Quite proud of that one. I've still got that's one time I did it. I think the programme might have been free. That's the only reason I got that programme. But I remember standing there for ages. The crowd's obviously cleared. It wasn't a big crowd, only one stand open, I think. And the crowd clears, and it's just me standing under the bridge. Took it to the bridge. I took it to the bridge. I don't want to feel. But the other bridge, of course, is the one that the players will be travelling back up, or are they in their cars? I don't know how they leave from St Mirren. We're the away team, so we probably in the bus and we'll go back to Auchenhowie or Ibrox. But that is it still the M8? It must be the M8 because it's lots of lanes, isn't it? Lots of lanes. It's really busy. They kind of 2-minute trip on the motorway from Ibrox down the road. Or Derby rivals, or Paisley Road rivals. Paisley Road Derby rivals, St Mirren, and that says if you're going to go to the airport, is it Abbott's Inch? It's in Paisley. It's closer to Paisley than it is to Glasgow Airport, of course. No direct rail link, that's Scotland for you. But you have to go under the motorway. Don't you get a taxi in there, but you get under stuff. You get under the bridge. I don't ever want to feel donk slap funk. Slap bass, funky stuff, and you go under that bridge to go to the airport, and that's where Igaman kind of take Nico asking me as well. If you're not committed, if you're not into it, don't want you. I do want 11 to 15 million pound for you, Igaman, but that's a thing. If you're not committed, the manager's having trouble convincing you that Rangers is the club for you, or your agent's convincing you that you're wanted somewhere else. If you're feeling a bit superstar-y at Rangers, well, you're really not showing it on the park right now. So anybody who wants to go can go, they can go. And it was a big revelation from the manager today. I didn't think Igaman would be like that, but he can just take that bridge, take it to the bridge. That bridge, it's motorway. It's motorway, that bridge. There's a footpath at St James's. It's trains, the bridge at Gilmore Street Station, and it's cars and buses and stuff, and motorbikes on the motorway, the bridge at the airport. Get on planes. That's your planes, trains, automobiles. It's all covered. It's all slap bass, slap fun. How are we going to do this, folks? How are we going to do this? You know what happens with these kind of things. I mean, I'm on the computer there, the laptop, just trying to look up a few wee things, see the post-match interview. I saw the Sky, obviously I watched the game on Sky, but I'm trying to see what Russell Martin said in the actual bowels of St Mirren Stadium when he's talking to the assembled hacks. So I've got the laptop open to find that out. And that thing down the right-hand side, it's recommending stuff. The algorithms brought up. I was like, what is this? This is some severed head. So I click on this thing, and it's the moment a woman phones the police in Wisconsin or something like that. It's Midwest Murders, it's called. And she's just found her son's. It's a 911 call. And it's the husband. He's saying, she's just telling me. It's like, change the accent, but it's essentially she's just telling me our boy's head's in it's in the bin downstairs, isn't it? The bin in the kitchen. I've had a look and I don't know what it is. I don't fancy looking in there again. It's totally manky. It seems to be a lot of mess about it, but it does look kind of like that. I don't. What is it? A severed head in the bin? The son's head. The mum's just found the son's head in a bin in the kitchen, and it's the 911 call. She's in the background going, "Nah, I'm not going in there again. Not going to look at." Doesn't it sound like? I don't know. I've not watched the video. Just have to watch the start of it. Really, no, you get dragged across. You get sucked into these things. I'm thinking, why is the algorithm bringing up somebody finding it? The son's like 20s, he's like 24, 25. That's the other thing. The dad, he's saying, how old is your son? 24, 25, something like that. I don't know, he's not got a head anymore. I think that's his head. He's into papier-mâché stuff. We don't know, it could be a fake head. I'm like, what's this all about? I'm thinking, why am I getting stuff about somebody finding their son's head in a bin in the kitchen? Because I look up on the internet, I look up on YouTube, the YouTube algorithm, thinking, what? Because all I look up is Rangers stuff, stuff about Rangers. It's Rangers under Russell Martin. And this is this thing's really gory and sad and tragic and grotesque and gruesome, and that's why it's in it. That's why the algorithm's sending it to me. I know, folks. I usually do something. What you want? Where do you want it? Where you want it? Is Popeye Doyle says to the guy in New York in the French Connection. The first time I watched it as a kid. First time I saw that French Connection. It's Popeye Doyle. He goes into the bar and it's all black guys in the bar. I don't know where it is, whereabouts in New York. It's Harlem probably, and he's they're all kind of shaking down everybody at the bar, getting to empty their pockets and stuff like that. And he grabs one guy. What are you saying to me? And he grabs a guy and he throws him into the gents. And turns out the guy's an undercover cop, so he's pretending he's in there, kind of beating the guy up a bit, where he's actually trying to get some information out of him. And then at the end of the wee chat, he's like, "Right, where are you wanting it?" Says the guy. And the guy's like, "Oh, aye, and he means, where do you want me to punch you? Because I've got to give you a black eye. I've got to give you a sign. People have got to be convinced that I am actually a cop and you are actually, one of the gang. You're no an undercover cop because I've punched you. You got a black eye. You got a bleeding nose or whatever like that." And he's kind of like, "Oh, in the eye." And Popeye Doyle, Gene Hackman, decks him one, which is at the time it was most real. I'm like, "Dad, what's going on here?" I was just a kid and I was watching this. Like, why is he hitting him and all that? And what? Dad's explaining to me, and I'm thinking, this is the most gritty, real thing. New York looks absolutely amazing. I want to go there, and I did eventually. But and when I went to Harlem, the first time I went to Harlem, I got out the subway and focused the stuff about Harlem, being going to be trouble and what have you. I'd read my Langston Hughes and all that, but I was like, you get out the subway, and the folks, it's totally over. As long as you go during the day and all that, you'll be absolutely fine. There's no, as long as you're not causing any trouble, there's no danger in the main drags. And it's just like anywhere else in the world, any big city. If you're going to go up dark alleyways and stuff like that, or try cause trouble, then maybe it'll come up a bit. It's not got a bad reputation. You shouldn't be worried about going to Harlem. So I want to go and see the Apollo and all that one. And I did. I went during the day, blistering sunshine in September, and I got out the subway, and there was 3 policemen in a kind of like Roman legion tortoise thing. They were back to back with their guns drawn, edging back into their car and bolting. And I thought, okay, this is good. It's quite a thing to be the only white person that you see. Where you don't see any white people for however long, it's, I don't know, half an hour or so, and you get an idea what it must be like for somebody who's in an ethnic minority in this country. They must be terrified most of the time. I'm walking about and thinking, it's quite a strange feeling, just a physical, existential kind of feeling to be walking about in an area and there's nobody else the same colour as you. You just, what's the problem? Colour of skin colour. Doesn't mean anything to me, I'm colourblind. What is, well, it's all very well us liberal lefties saying that kind of thing. If you're Asian or black or whatever, living in a mostly white country, there's times it must be absolutely terrifying for you. I'm just diverting. Sorry, I'm diverting from that. What was the point? How do you want it? Where do you want it? Popeye Doyle smacks him. You know what I'm talking about. You know what we've got to do with these pods after these results. This is the third in a row in the league, one each. So even if you just started watching my pods this season, you know what's going to happen here. Where you interesting thing about William Friedkin. A many interesting thing about William Friedkin. I mean, it kind of dominated my childhood. I told you before about Cruising. Al Pacino film Cruising. About a cult classic now. And I started watching, I haven't even watched the James Franco kind of film where he tries to recreate the lost 20-40 minutes of footage, infamous footage of the leather bar scene in Cruising that Friedkin directed. I've never watched Cruising. I've always thought I'm going to have that as a treat to myself to watch Cruising one night. It's going to sit down and just, you can get it on, I think you can get it on Amazon Prime. I want to watch it, but I'm not going to quite manage it. But I remember telling you before, I saw when I was a kid going to video shops, the first time I had video shops and selling videotapes. I was like, that looks great. Al Pacino's wearing lots of leather gear. He's wearing all leather. This looks totally tough. It must be some sort of army or something he's in. What's this about? And Dad's going, no, that's not what that's about, son. That's not what that's about. But it's about a gay serial killer. Right? There's a gay serial killer, and it's based on a real life instance of a guy who killed. And I don't know. I'm assuming it happened after he'd done The Exorcist. Friedkin did The Exorcist, and it was The Exorcist also dominated my childhood, and it was, my dad was scared of it. The film The Exorcist, my dad was scared of it. And that kind of thing, usually I'm watching spooky stuff and all that in the telly, and it's terrifying me. And I saw as a kid, and I would look at my dad, and he'd just laughing or whatever. And you thought, they'd grown up suddenly finding it scary. It must be okay. The Exorcist, I remember my Uncle Dave no longer with us. My friend, a great guy, my Uncle Dave, and he loved his horror films. He was right into a horror film buff and ghost stories and things like that. And I remember him saying to me, he was like, he couldn't sleep for like a month after going to see The Exorcist. This film got him. I'm like, what's an Exorcist? What's that all about? And he's like, never mind. It's don't ever watch that film. If somebody says to you, because it freaked him out for like a month. And I remember talking to adults and they're saying, "Oh, my God, that's terrible." And my dad, I remember saying to my dad, "What, The Exorcist?" And he's like, "Oh, I watched that," and it was just. But at the same time, it's really weird because you're grown up. I was growing up in the age of the total horror, nasty, video nasty type films where it's all slasher films and stuff like that. And we go into our mates on a Friday night. We'd go into somebody's house, one person's house. You're that kind of age, like 12 to 14, where you can't really go out drinking yet. And so you've got to find some way to chill out with your pals. So we'd go to each other's parents' houses, obviously, and they'd let us have the living room to watch a video, from Blockbuster or whatever, if it was even invented then, probably just for a local shop, on a Friday night. And it was all these total gore fests, all these total slasher films, horror films, folk getting their faces ripped off, their heads ripped, and the more blood and gore, the better. And you just kind of enjoyed it. You just kind of, that's somebody get their head chopped off. Whoa, because you're that kind of age as well. And so one night, it must have been towards the end of that, I went round to one of my pals' houses. I don't know I think it was Cameron Wallace, it was his turn. And he's like, "Oh, we've got The Exorcist tonight." And I was like, the chill went down my spine because my family had actually built up. Well, my Uncle Dave was religious, but he's a man of the world. That's actually the Fleetwood Mac, "Man of the World." That's his favourite song. Should I tell you about my life? And it was he was a groovy guy. So it wasn't as if he was kind of overly sheltered or anything like that. My whole folk that I trusted, my family, they hated it. They said it was just unbearable. It was so scary, this film. And I remember sitting there going, I can't watch this. I can't watch this film. I might have told you this story before, but we're desperate today. We're desperate. And it come on, and I'm thinking, I can't. When you're that age, I can't leave the house. I can't go. Oh, I can't watch this, boys, because you're with your pals. There's 4 or 5 of us, and it's like, I'm not going to take this slagging or whatever. I can't be the beat. But I was sitting there thinking, my life ends tonight. This is going to terrify me. I'm never going to be able to function again as a human being, But I'm going to do it. I need to do it. I can't. And I sat, and it was hilarious. It was just totally hilarious. It's one of the funniest films I've ever seen in my life, and it remains so, And it shows you how the generations move on, in terms of entertainment and whatever. The things that shocked previous generations, even like the one before you, just are absolutely laughable. But the thing about The Exorcist is, I was going to do the Cutler's Cup again. No, I think we might get away with this. The thing with The Exorcist is, there's a scene where they're trying to find out what's wrong with the lassie. She's possessed by Satan, but apparently they can't believe that. So they take her to as a radiologist, because somebody's going to have examine a kind of actual X-ray or brain and stuff like that. I think as a radiologist, and Friedkin, in researching this part of it's the book obviously, and he's doing the film of it, had gone to University of Columbia. I don't know what university it is, but it is. I can't remember where it's filmed. Is it Washington, I think? And he watched somebody getting examined, like radiology, in one of the machines that looks at you inside your brain, and he was so impressed by the way the staff were kind of doing it. He thought, no, I'm going to have, see that guy there who's a radiologist? I'm sure it's radiologist. I want him in the film. He's going to play the actual radiologist in the film. Is that all right with you, mate? Aye, that's great. I'll do that. He was a real life gay serial killer. I think this is why he ended up getting put away. The guy that plays a radiologist in William Friedkin's The Exorcist is, in real life, the gay serial killer that they're all scared of in Cruising. And I'm getting a bit uncomfortable with just going on about gay serial killers, as if I feel really 1970s unreconstructed. Well, that would make you a serial killer, wouldn't it? No, but most obviously the folk that behave like that are heterosexual blokes. But no, it was like that's William Friedkin. So I'm assuming that he's read the case in the paper about the film. He went to visit him in jail. He's like, that's the guy that was in my movie. He was a radiologist in my movie. He's actually killed, I think he killed a couple of guys. And they thought, I think there'd been some other bodies had turned up. They thought he might be responsible, but they didn't get him for that. I need to check my Wikipedia again. But he went to see him in prison and all that. So I'm assuming he went to see him in prison after, and that inspired him, Friedkin, to then make the movie Cruising about. such a killer, and it was like, oh, the gay scene, because folk didn't, if you weren't gay, nobody knew about it. Right? It was the whole gay scene was a thing that the whole world, the heterosexual world, didn't really know that much about, most of us. So that was his way to do the that day. Well, I did the Cup Winners' Cup. Is what I mean. Well, after the Dundee game, I think I got to 1979. I mean, that's a few of them are. I mean, like Robert and Kubrick-esque, they're regular. I mean, they're here all the time. They know exactly what I'm doing, so they're not going to be. But they're probably enjoying this bit better than me talking about Rangers being crap. But well, I did just to get rid of the other tourists, the ones that. All right. Aye, so I thought it was the Dundee game. I got to 1979, didn't I, with the Cup Winners' Cup. And the interesting thing about 79 when it's Fortuna Dusseldorf got beat from Barcelona. They get beat up Barcelona 4-3 after extra time in the 1979 Cup Winners' Cup final. It was the first one I ever watched. My mate and I were playing football. I was only like 10 at the time. And my dad shouting me, 79? Aye, because I was 10. I turned 11. No, I turned 10. So I was only 9, really. Just coming up in 10, and we were playing football in the field across from. It just used to be an actual field across from mum and dad's house. It's all houses now. It used to be all fields, and we were playing football. And my dad shout, "Hey, two of you got to come in and see this game because it had already kicked off. It was on Border TV." And he's like, I can't let them know see this. It's not the kind of thing my dad did. He just, no, you got to come and see this. This is brilliant. Barcelona, Fortuna Dusseldorf. It was 4-3 after extra time. I was talking about Charlie Rexach, who then was the Barcelona assistant manager when they won it in 79, also in Switzerland, Barcelona, Cruyff's assistant. But in 69, also in Switzerland, he scored when Barcelona lost 3-2 to Slovan Bratislava in the Cup Winners' Cup final. That was a real coincidence. But one of the things about it is the goal that Fortuna Dusseldorf scored, Klaus Allofs and Thomas Allofs, who I was talking to Mike, who's a Jambo, he was on yesterday, putting me right on one of the facts I got wrong in Friday's preview pod about Klaus Allofs and Tony Allofs, because Thomas Allofs, because they beat Rangers 5-0 in the 1982-83 UEFA Cup second round, second leg game in the Mungersdorfer, and Allofs was one of the scorers. It was one of the two other times that we've conceded 3 goals in the first 20 minutes in Europe. And Allofs, is it Thomas, is it Klaus? I just can never get my head around it now, because in that game, they're brothers, obviously, Thomas and Klaus Allofs, both played for Germany, or West Germany back in the day, and the first goal that Fortuna Dusseldorf score, the two of them get their boot onto, it's like a scramble in the box, and they're both like poachers, great strikers. The two of them get their foot on the ball at the same time to put it over the line. And I think it's credited to one of them, but it's really difficult to tell which one. It's like two brothers basically hitting the ball at the same time, both putting it over the line at the same time. Does it get any better for a family? Probably worse. They probably argued about it for years, because you've also got whatever one, Klaus or Thomas, scores for Werder Bremen in the 1992 Cup Winners' Cup final, which is 13 years after. And Oleg Blokin scored in the 75 Cup Winners' Cup final, and then he scores in the 86 Cup Winners' Cup final. So it's 11 years apart. You get Charlie Rexach, who scored 10. He's in that game against Fortuna Dusseldorf in 79. He's scoring in a Cup Winners' Cup final 10 years after he scored another Cup Winners' Cup final. And then Allofs, who's scoring in that game, is then scoring 13 years later. It's like an ongoing record where they keep outdoing each other for who scored in the longest apart years, Cup Winners' Cup finals type thing. It's really, I find it really interesting. Also, what's interesting, I think, 79 Fortuna Dusseldorf. Then that season, 78-79, we're in the European Cup, and we get put out by Cologne. And Tommy McLean scores our goal at Ibrox against Cologne. Dieter Hoeness scores for Cologne, and it's too little, too late for him. We lost the away leg 1-0. The game they get get moved to the Thursday night because there'd been snow on the pitch on the Wednesday. It was live on BBC. I watched it in my gran's, and we go 1-0 down on the night, so it's 2-0 in aggregate. Away goal rule counts in those days as well. It's no good. But Tommy McLean scores for Rangers, and that means the two times we get beat, the two other times after Bruges on Tuesday night, the two other times that we lost 3 goals in the first 20 minutes of a match in Europe, both away from home. One was to Cologne in that 82-83. Tommy McLean has scored against Cologne. Right? And the other one was against Real Madrid in the Bernabeu in the 63-64 European Cup. Tommy McLean scored against Real Madrid for Kilmarnock in the 2 weeks draw at Rugby Park when Kilmarnock played them in the European Cup, when Kilmarnock were champions of Scotland a couple of seasons later, the 65-66 European Cup. 65? It would be. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Tom McLean scoring. And then Tom McLean in 78-79 Sorry, 79-80. That's 78-79 for Dusseldorf are getting to the Cup Winners' Cup final and their only time in a European final. And in the following season, Tommy McLean scores. Fortuna Dusseldorf are still in the Cup Winners' Cup again the following season, and we put them out as we were wanting to do in the Cup Winners' Cup. We put out Dortmund when they were the holders in 66-67 on our way to the final. But Tommy McLean scores against, I'm sure he scores against Fortuna Dusseldorf in one of the legs, but you think he scores against, or did we just put them out? I think he scores against them. And then he scores against Valencia, who going to win it. They put us out over the two legs. But Mario Kempes, a World Cup, a guy who scored twice in the World Cup final, he scores in the Mestalla as we draw one each away with Valencia in the first leg. They come to Ibrox and they win 3-1, and Kempes is sensational. And they go on to win it. But I think Tommy McLean has just got. He played against Eintracht in that the 5-1 game where Kilmarnock, 3-0 down for the first leg in the Fairs Cup, and then they go 1-0 down early on in the second leg at Rugby Park, but then win 5-1 to go through. It's an amazing comeback in the season that they win the league under Willie Waddle. Tommy McLean plays in that game, but he doesn't actually score in it, which meant he'd have scored against Eintracht and Real Madrid, the two teams that. It's a 1979 was Barcelona beating Fortuna Dusseldorf in the final. 1980, and the thing, I think 1980 was Arsenal losing on penalties. Graham Rix missing his penalty in the Heysel Stadium. It was Valencia, and Alfredo Di Stefano was the manager of Valencia. 81 was Dinamo Tbilisi beating Carl Zeiss Jena in Dusseldorf, and Fortuna Dusseldorf's big. It was the Ruhr Stadion, I think it was at that point in time. No, the Rhein Stadion, sorry, the Ruhr, Dusseldorf. But I went to see Dinamo Tbilisi won that game, and they're playing Carl Zeiss Jena from behind at Iron Curtain from East Germany, and it's Dinamo Tbilisi from Georgia, which was a part of the Soviet Union at that point in time. Great team, that Dinamo Tbilisi team. But it's played in West Germany, and there's like 5,000 people there or something in a 60,000 capacity stadium. It's quite interesting photographs you see of it. Pretty cool. When you think you could just walk along, you could just, if you stayed locally, you could just turn up and get into a European final because there's nobody else there, and just walk into it basically. I always find it really fascinating. What I did was in 2005, I went to see Fortuna Dusseldorf playing Carl Zeiss Jena. So I'm seeing two teams that have lost the Cup Winners' Cup final in successive seasons, and I'm seeing them in Dusseldorf, the city where the second one lost that Cup Winners' Cup final. But I went to see them at the Paul Jannes Stadion. Paul Jannes was the top scorer when they won the Bundesliga for the only time in their history. It wasn't the Bundesliga then, they were just champions of Germany. It was 1933. Bad year. And I went to see it was their secondary stadium. They've got a wee stadium because we're playing. It was a regional Liga Nord, which was basically the third division before they had an actual national third division in Germany. That's what it was. I think it's 2005. Jörg Albert's come on. He's a veteran back at Fortuna Dusseldorf, playing out his career at Fortuna Dusseldorf. He came on as a sub later on. I'm going, yay, on Jörg. But it was two Cup Winners' Cup. I got two of them off the list at the same time. Going to see a game there in Dusseldorf. That's enough really. It's 82 was Barcelona again beating Standard Liège, 120,000. It was in the new camp. It's the biggest crowd ever for the final. We had 80,000 in our leg of the final in 1961. 83, Aberdeen. That's Aberdeen beating Real Madrid 2-1 in Gothenburg there. And the only other time that Aberdeen 11 played together was in 1983 Scottish Cup final when they beat us 1-0. No, Eric Black and Ferguson on the pitch slagging them rotten. Miller McLeish won the cup for us today. I'm in the Rangers end behind them, who are the singing for Rangers. But that's the only two times that the Aberdeen, the Gothenburg 11 played together. So I feel Davey quite privileged to have seen the Gothenburg 11. 84 was Porto, who put us out losing, and they put Aberdeen out in the semi-final, losing to Juventus back in Switzerland. The final 85 was Everton tanking Rapid Vienna 3-1 in Rotterdam. 86 was Dynamo Kiev. Football from the future. Oh my God, you got to watch it. Just look up the highlights. It's in Lyon, Stade Gerland, Lyon's old stadium, and it's Dynamo Kiev 3, Atletico de Madrid 0. It's unbelievable. It is football from the future. It's probably how Russell Martin. Don't talk about it just now. 1980. What was that? 86, 87 was what was 87? 1987 Cup Winners' Cup final. Oh, I've just suddenly drawn a blank. 86 is Dynamo Kiev. 87 was Ajax. Ajax beating Lokomotiv Leipzig. Marco van Basten, only goal of the game in the final in Athens, the Olympic Stadium, where we just played Panathinaikos a wee while ago. Leipzig. Yeah, teams because they wear their home kit's the blue shorts with the yellow top, but Arsenal had lost the kit. They'd lost the final with their blue kit, blue shorts and yellow top away strip against Valencia in 1980. And you also, I think, Carlos Ayciena were in the yellow and or the all white Carlos Ayciena. I think they've been all white actually. But somebody else loses the final wearing blue shorts and yellow tops. No, Juventus won it. Juventus won it in 1984 wearing their traditional blue shorts, yellow top away a week. 88 was that's half an hour. My God, right, I think that'll do us. That'll do us. You've kind of got 88 was KV Mechelen then beating Ajax in the final in Strasbourg. 89 was Barcelona beating Sampdoria in I think it was Wankdorf. I think it was Bern. Might have been Basel. There's so many finals played in Basel. So many finals played in Bern in the Cupwinners' Cup. I get them all mixed up. 1990 was Sampdoria come back and they beat Anderlecht in the final in Gothenburg. 91 was Manchester United beating Barcelona in Rotterdam. The Kuip 2-1. 92 was Werder Bremen beating Arsene Wenger's Monaco. Arsene Wenger, who lost 3 different European finals in his time as a manager. He beat them 2-0. Winton Roofer, who scored against Scotland in the 82 World Cup. It's New Zealand. He scored as Werder Bremen beat AS Monaco 2-0 in 92 Cupwinners' Cup final in the old Stadium of Light in the original Estadio da Luz, Benfica's ground in Lisbon. And that was Otto Rehagel was the manager of... You've got to start the pod, Alec. You've got to start the pod. I can't help it. Otto Rehagel was the manager of Werder Bremen, right? And he's got Winton Roofer playing up front, and then it's in the Stadium of Light, Benfica's, and then Otto against all the odds, Werder Bremen's only European trophy. Then, 2004, he's the manager of Greece in the new Stadium of Light, Estadio da Luz, Lisbon, Benfica's new ground, in the final, and he beats Portugal in the final, and the guy playing up front from Angelos Haristeas is the centre forward for Werder Bremen at the time. Just quite amazing. 92-93 was that was Parma beating Royal Antwerp at Wembley. 94 was Arsenal beating Parma in Copenhagen 1-0. Alan Smith. 95 was Arsenal then losing. I think that thing, the Cupwinners' Cup, I think it's 9 times that the holders lost the following season's final. It was Real Zaragoza got Naim, the big goal, 2-1 in the Parc des Princes. Beat Arsenal. 96 was PSG beating Rapid Vienna 1-0. I think it was in Brussels. 97 was Barcelona beating PSG. I think it was De Kuip in Rotterdam. In the final, 98 was Chelsea beating VfB Stuttgart. They beat them in the old Rosunda, Stockholm, no longer there. And 99 was Villa Park, Birmingham. I was there. The last ever Cupwinners' Cup final. Only Cupwinners' Cup match I ever saw was the last ever Cupwinners' Cup match, and that was Real Mallorca losing 2-1 to Lazio. Lazio was Danny, I think, scored the goal for Real Mallorca, and big Christian Vieri scored into the whole end for Lazio, and a quarter of an hour to go when Pavone had a very wee half volley towards the edge of the box. Last ever goal scored in the Cupwinners' Cup. I was there up in the Dougie Ellis stand. Trevor Brooken walked past me with John Watson, at half time, just leaving the commentary position to go and get a cup of tea or whatever. The gantry position. And Trevor Brooken, of course, played in the 1976 final for West Ham again. All right, okay, let's do it. How you doing, folks? That's a record, I think, because they're on to us. The Celtic fans are on to us. They know that I'm going to rant and rave. Hopefully, to have fast forwarded past all that. This is your Fat Eck, nearly immediate post. Rangers remain undefeated in domestic matches in Scotland this season. Have just secured their 3rd straight 1-1 draw in the SPFL Premiership matches. Reaction pod coming to you in association with Jersnet. Check out Jersnet. It's not on tonight, Jersnet, I don't think, but I would go back and check. Friday night's pod is worth watching again. It's Rob and it's Stuart. They do a grand job there. And I'm sponsored by that. I'm also sponsored by, I wrote it down here, it's Ford, Olivetti, Phillips, Nike, Snickers and ITV Sport. Those were I was talking in the preview pod, or was it the post-match reaction for the Bruges game the other night? Not the first time we played Bruges, it was the first season of the last time we played them in Europe, should I say. Also, the first time we played them in Europe, it was the first ever season of the Champions League proper. When UEFA had the dummy run in the European Cup the season before with the group stage, but then this was then they were bringing in this. Let's talk about today's game, Alec. But it was the sponsor. I was trying to work at the sponsors when that poster I had behind me in the preview pods, and I couldn't remember what they were. What they did, because all the new sponsors were, I was just like, that was the sponsors back in the day, 92, 93, Ford, Olivetti, Phillips, Nike, Snickers and ITV Sports in the days where like Bitcoin was something you went into the dentist complaining that you'd, what happened to your tooth? Bitcoin, sort of, when Qatar Airways was a decongestion, where Just Eat was a kind of edict that you got accompanied by a smack on the back of the head if you were turning your nose up at what was on your plate, and where playing with your PlayStation was something you get arrested by the British Transport Police for doing. I'm sponsored by them. My name's Alec Anderson. Things haven't been the same since you came into my life. You found a way to touch my soul, and I'm never, ever, ever gonna let it go. Happiness lies in your own hands. It took me much too long to understand how it could be until you shared your secret with me. Ding, 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 ding. Something's coming over. Something's coming. Madge top 5. We do that. We do the Madge top 5. In reverse, that's Secret. I think probably the most underrated Madonna song. I'm going to go in reverse order. Number 5, or ascending order. Number 5, Lucky Star. I love Lucky Star. That's a classic song. Number 4, Hung Up. Yeah, the ABBA sample. I just find I think it's a great song. Hung Up. 3, Secret. You just heard it there. Number 2, Borderline. Classic. Madonna, Borderline, what a song. That is number 1, Get Into the Groove. Get Into the Groove. Just an absolute belter of a song. Get Into the Groove. And we aren't, are we, Rangers? We just aren't. We aren't into the groove at all yet. My true reaction, I am actually no bothered about drawing today. The only thing that's bothering me is I said it was going to be 3 each, but it kind of is, isn't it? Because we've had 3 successive 1 each draws. That makes it 3 each for Rangers in the league. That's the fact that St Mirren's first goal they've scored in the league this season. Doesn't matter. They're nemesis. They're our nemesis. A team that took most points off us last season, they could yet put us out of the League Cup this season as well, even though they could be our League Cup nemesis again. Remember, we lost it during 55. They beat us in the League Cup. Horrible place for us, St Mirren. Horrible place to go. And it didn't get any different today. But I did say my preview pod on Friday, and it's overly long as well. I thought that was overly long. This one's going to be absolutely epic. Yeah, I said that I feel as if we should slip up today, and we have. I feel as if we're not ready yet. It's timing. It's all about the timing, and it's going to be Celtic at Ibrox next week. Go to Bruges, don't get tanked. For Christ's sake, don't go through, don't qualify. Don't turn that tie around. Whatever you do, not as much danger of that, but just leave it. This is the time to announce what it is. A week today. If it's going to happen, then it should happen. It should happen that way. It's the best possible way to announce yourself. We did an all blue kit on today, and St Mirren just that kind of hazy stripe, the cancer of the modern kit. This thing, the hazy stripe, that Inter and AC Milan both had a go at it, and I really don't. But we've slipped into the bottom, to 7th in the table. We're in the bottom 6, but the main thing is we're a point ahead of our Paisley rivals. 6 years ago, you had Borna Barisic. 6 years ago, almost to the day, Borna Barisic, he's no use, he's garbage. So it's the exact same point of the season, still kind of late August. And it's not working for Borna Barisic at all. I don't know why we signed him. And then, on the hour mark, he curls in the only goal of the game at that very stadium we were playing at today. He wins 1-0. Borna's arrived. He gets a league title. He gets Scottish Cup. He plays in a European final. So it was always great. Borna had bad moments as well, but don't be giving up just because we've had a bad result. Pre-match talk of us signing Bojan Majowski. Such a kind of modern signing, isn't he? He's such a modern signing in that he's North Macedonian and he's playing in Spain, but he's also as a signing target, but he's also played for a Scottish club already. That's so kind of 21st century. But he's also quite a 70s, 80s type signing because he's somebody I know so little about other Scottish teams now. The whole echo chamber thing of Scottish football. The way it's all covered now, particularly podcasting, the podcasters, the scum, all of us. You just can disappear up the Brunion of your own club all the time and never really pay any attention to another team until they're at Ibrox scalping you or whatever. And Bojan Miovski, though, is one guy who's bypassed all that because he's so good. He's an artist. The guy's an absolute artist. I hated him when he's playing against us. And I think he scored against us at Ibrox, Hampden and Parkhead, but he's an absolute artist, Miovski, and it's somebody we should be in for. And we will be, because today we have to start with Tello Asgard up front, the starting 11. The big news, two big headlines, one kind of sub-headline, I would say, but the main headline, the secondary headline was one we already knew about. Giga suspended. Is this, we could have cancelled this game today? We didn't have to play this game today. Have we only played it to make sure Giga is fit? Because the players look tired. To make sure he serves his suspension before we play Celtic next week. It's backfired on us slightly, if that was the intention. But of course, Giga doesn't play, and Manny Fernandez, who made his debut last week against Alloa, he comes in to play alongside John Souttar in central defence. But Thello Asgard up front, playing as a striker. Danilo not deemed good enough, I would imagine, to start the game, despite having scored during the week against Bruges. He's been very lightweight, hasn't he, Danilo? When he's been playing up front this season so far. Everybody's been lightweight, though, you could say. And we had Dessers not back fit yet, despite his sterling efforts and being very professional compared to others. Igaman, not fit yet, and revelations were to follow about Hamza Igaman, not fully fit, so he stayed on the bench as well. But Thello Asgard, who's not that fit himself, has he had a full game for us yet? Did he play the full game? And played against Alloa, played midweek. So he starts not in his natural position as a kind of 9, maybe just to hold the position, hold the shape or whatever. You've got Ant-Man and the Gas either side of him, as is becoming traditional. In the middle, it's Rothwell and Raskin, as well as Lyle Cameron. And you've got Max Aarons and megalomaniacs we all are now. The new left backs in there, Max Aarons at right back, Jack Butland in goal. And I think the sub headline is that Tav is on the bench. I thought we could have found a place for Tav in that game today, but no. The club captain, is on the bench. 6 minutes in, Ant-Man goes through the middle, aiming for the top bin. The goalie kind of holds it, but that's our first shot on goal. 6 minutes into the game, 7th minute. We get out-muscled Souttar out in the wing by Ayonga, and that's St Mirren. That's when your big centre half gets almost completely smashed. That's St Mirren. So it used to be a guy his name sounded like Lasagna, who was kind of dominating up front for St Mirren against us last season. Now it's like Bacchus in midfield, but the god of wine. The god of wine, women and blokes, and song, not so much Bacchus and his pals as Bacchus and his pandas. But we weren't really getting any shots on goal, making, St Mirren were kind of laying siege bit deep. They were keeping us in our own half. We weren't in our own box, we were kind of around the outskirts of our own box, we weren't getting very far. And it was, I think, the 16th minute before we had a decent move, really, and Raskin just in the middle, he hits it to Ant-Man. Raskin's playing 6, Ant-Man out wide, and Ant-Man fires it into the box and Rothwell gets on the end of it, but the shot's kind of smothered. It doesn't really go anywhere, but I think, are we actually trying to play St Mirren on the break? You're thinking that was so kind of, they're ready to hit on the break. Is that how we're intending to play St Mirren in Paisley? Which is a bit worrying. Raskin gets booked a couple of minutes later for pulling back O'Hara in the middle of the park. It's Rothwell's fault for having a bad touch. Didn't have a great game, Joe Rothwell. And Gogic gets a tame kind of header in from the free kick. But that's St Mirren's first real attempt on goal as well. So they're not getting very far, but straight away I'm thinking, that's Raskin getting booked this early in the game. He's getting totally outnumbered. He's getting swarmed in midfield. Another bad touch by Rothwell, or if not Raskin himself, he's going to lunge in there, gets another booking sent off. 2 bookings, can you fight that? Can you appeal that? Is that going to be a suspension straight away if it's a 2 booking sending off as opposed to a straight red? I don't know, but I was worried about it straight away, thinking about next week. 22nd minute, St Mirren miss a good chance in a packed box, really. Lyle Cameron, 24th minute, He does the same for us. It's a great kind of Migoma cross from the left, but already it's clear that this is, our eights arriving late. 8 arriving late in the box as the ball gets cut in from the wing is a tactic. It's a plan. This is what we're trying to do. So it's not really on the 9. It's not really on Asgard, which is just as well because he's finding it very difficult to get involved. Our Greta Thunberg lookalike, and you can't clear our box for about a 2-minute period thereafter at the halfway point of the first half. We're pinned in again. Mondron at the back post. He just can't get quite put it away for St Mirren. They find him at the back post. It's getting quite dangerous. 30th minute on the half-hour mark. Lyle Cameron kind of looking for a penalty. No chance as he again goes into the box, and it's an Ant-Man cross this time. Asgard, I think the 33rd minute, he is a wee. I'm going to leave the there's a bit about Asgard coming up that I'm going to just talk about. But I think it's the 33rd minute. Gassama is on the deck. He's been hit by Phillips, who wears number 88 in the back of his shirt. I'm not. The couple of times I've seen him playing against us, he's pitting himself, but he's a character. Guys like that are ready to rock. They're showing themselves. They're trying to play to the crowd and all that, and we should be able to exploit that. And it's like I always said with Scott Brown at Celtic, he was just so ready to go all the time. The fact that I was never angry at Scott Brown. I was angry at us for being so immature that we couldn't, or for being so unsharp, so dull that we couldn't exploit his blatant immaturity. Same thing. It's psychology. Same thing with this guy Phillips, who's going to boot, and he's fouling Gassama, and then his Gassama sits on the deck saying, "What the hell is it?" He's like, "No, get up, don't act it." I'm thinking, no, don't get up. Get up of your own accord, or just tell him you're not having it. Just sit there and complain away to the referee. But he seems to get up, and then that's it. It's a goal. It's almost like a reaction to the fact that we're not reacting properly to how St Mirren are playing this game. It's like a ping pong pong, bish bash bosh. It's Gassama himself has got the ball. He tries to lay it off into the box. He's out in left wing as usual. Gassam, sorry, it's Gassam he wants to be called. That's his name. He wants to be called that as if he's fussy. That's the guy's name. That's how it's pronounced, Gassam. So he plays the ball inside, and it's a St Mirren player kind of deflects it onto another St Mirren centre half or somebody who plays a lovely ball from his own box forward. Nico Raskin's totally caught out, so the next St Mirren player plays it forwards, and they're through on goal. It just splits their defence in half. I think Manny Fernandez is badly positioned, but Ayunga's right in behind him. It's a great ball that's been played through to him, but it's pretty straight. It's a kind of, much like Bruges' first goal, not quite as disastrous looking as Bruges' first goal the other night, but it's basically from their box. St Mirren have just hit the ball forward twice, and they're in on goal, and Ayunga's got a kind of basic finish. He just carries on professionally, does what he's supposed to do. He takes it away from John Suter, then puts it past the goalie. That's St Mirren's first league goal of the season. 1, 2, 3, bing, bang, bong. Rothwell falls over the ball around about the 37th minute again, and it allows Bacchus a long shot on goal. 38th minute, Asgard. I think this kind of sums up the whole state of the Rangers team just now. He brings out a great save. It is a great save from George, the St Mirren goalkeeper, when you see it back. The ball gets played. Was it a corner? The ball certainly gets played in from wide to Gassama, and he's trying to do it. He's not his natural position, the fella, so he's trying to do the centre forward bit, and he's spinning his markers. I think he's got two fellas on him as well. He's a bit kind of in the 6-yard box, really tight towards the near post, and there's two St Mirren defenders on top of him as well as the goalie behind them coming out to try and swarm him. So he spins and he goes to ground, and I've got VJ Day, 80th anniversary, a week past on Friday, and I had family obviously involved in that part of the conflict, the Second World War, so I needed to commemorate that. But it's the 4th anniversary of Gerd Muller's death. My kind of stats hero, Gerd Muller, and it was a very Gerdy Muller moment. The way that Asgard spun and turned, and the ball's on the deck, but he's where the boots are flying, but he gets a wee foot to it. He just kind of lobs the ball towards the bottom corner, and it's in the air, kind of float. He's not got a clean contact like Gerd Muller very rare. Sometimes didn't get a really clean contact with the ball. You watch his 2 goals in the 1970 World Cup semi-final, absolutely masterful stuff. Just deflecting the ball, just that infinitesimal inch or so. infinitesimal part of an inch in the right direction, the wrong direction for the defenders and the goalies. It's the Catenaccio Italy defence as well that he's just tearing to pieces, but Italy won the game. But I thought Asgard's doing the same thing today, and that ball's just going to drop into the net. But George, the St Mirren goalkeeper, who's on the deck, just spoons it, just gets a hand up there as it kind of hangs in the air and spoons it away. And you're like, they are attending. We're watching the game almost. It's as if we're putting enough effort as far as we're concerned. I wish everything would just happen. I wish it would just happen for us now. I wish that ball would just go over the line because I put it in the right direction. Asgard should be piling in there. Somebody should be behind them for Rangers, making sure that ball is over the line. But St Mirren are attending to every detail. This whole thing, they seem to be playing real football. They're working themselves into the ground. It's quite a they're happy to do the ugly stuff in order to get the beautiful result, St Mirren. But we're still 1-0 down. 42 minutes. St Mirren, they're boxing us in again, getting guys in on our goal. They're kind of at angles and we're smothering their attacks, but it's at the last moment. We eventually clear the ball, but it's far from comfy. It's a half-time whistle goes. I'm watching the players come down the tunnel, and Mark O'Hara has been involved in a wee set to with Aarons, and they've both been booked a few minutes earlier, and O'Hara's waiting for Aarons and he's walking towards him as they go down the tunnel, and the camera's cut at that point, but they're starting to have a wee confab. I don't know if it's a kind of nae hard feelings, but I just get the feeling that O'Hara's going to be in there giving it, what's your problem, that just trying to noise us up, and we should just be rising above that kind of stuff. It shouldn't be a problem. That shouldn't be enough to get a result out of us. But I think eventually that kind of football is going to be the kind that we will destroy when this system kicks in, when the players start learning what they're supposed to be doing properly. But we're embryonic just now. We're knackered and we will struggle. But we must just keep going with the plan. And this manager of ours, that's all he can do, is just go with the plan. He's got no plan B. He never changes anything. He's totally stuck in his ways. Oh, sorry, wait, at half time we seem to have taken off Magoma and Antman, and we're brought on Mueller and Danilo, and Danilo's not coming on for Asgard. He's staying on. We're going to a back three. And I spent the only interesting thing that happened in the first 20 minutes of the second half was me trying to work out how we were actually playing, particularly in midfield. So we went to the back three with Suter and Fernandez and Max Aarons, who's quite a small player. Max Aarons, that's our back three, and I think at first I was like, is Rothwell, he's now in at 6 and Raskin's gone up to play at 8, or is he playing at 10? But I think he was just bombing forward from the 6th position. I think it was Rothwell and Raskin were sitting together. I think we'd basically gone 3-4-3. The Asgard seemed to go into play at 8 in the left hand side, whereas Mikey Moore, I think he was supposed to be wide left, and we'd moved Gassam over to wide right, and so Lyle Cameron's still playing wide right as well. It was quite Danilo, he's on obviously at centre forwards, so it was quite it's quite a thing. But it then turned into a total borefest, which was good for us, and then it totally ruined St Mirren's momentum. But there was no momentum in the game at all. And they're winning. St Mirren are still winning the game 1-0. But Russell Martin I think he did. I didn't really make the mistake of claiming that was a good plan from him, but it did work. It did ostensibly did react to it. What was more kind of worrying in his post-match comments, or more interesting, let's say, to be charitable with Russell Martin, he was talking about how the players decided this. The players decided to change the shape at half time, and he came out this line that it's the shape's not very important. The shape's not the most important thing. It's the concept that's important. They don't really care about the shape they play in. I think he thought the reporter, Luke Shanley, was trying to make too much of them changing the shape. No, the concept still stays the same, how we're going to play the game, etc. This is interesting. And this is the first 20 minutes, 66th minute, we eventually make a substitution, but before that, I thought it was maybe Ian Crocker being a bit mischief-making. The Sky commentator, he's saying, Rangers look like they're going to bring on Ingerman. Oh no, that's down, it's Asgard's coming on for Diamandi, then Tav come on for Aarons a couple of minutes later. But he said, no, the boards are going up, no, the boards are back down, or whatever. There's activity on the Rangers bench, but they've obviously got a reporter down there trying to tell Crocker ahead of time what the next sub's going to be. But it kept changing. I thought, he's just making a big deal of that, Crocker, to try and pile on the pressure on Rangers. But no, he wasn't. Hamza Ingerman had been asked if he wanted to come on. He'd been out warming up Manager wanted to bring him on, I would imagine, for Asgard, and he said, no, I'm injured. He got a problem with his quad or whatever. And the manager then reveals that there's been an offer for him during the week. I don't know if it's a loan deal to Lille or Lille have upped their offer or whatever, but it was very, very ropey. The player refusing to come on. Maybe he is injured, but it seemed a hell of a time to reveal it when he's been warming up, etc. Could have reported it to somebody else before that. So that was well dodgy. I say Asgard come on for Diamandi. I think Lyle Cameron come over to play in the left-sided 8, and Diamandi went in at the right-hand sided 8. Tav comes on for Aarons, which, considering Tav's height, the fact he's a captain, he's a bit of a club legend, and he's played at centre half before, I thought it was a substitution we could have made at half time. There's a slight implication, I think, that the players aren't running the club. I think there's an ongoing battle just now for control of the dressing room. I'll talk about that later, but Tav's obviously not fighting his case, or he's not a troublemaker if he's not putting himself on at half time. In that kind of debate at half time that's going on, if that's the way it's just the fact that Russell Martin saying the players, the guys, decided how we're going to play it. 70th minute, St Mirren should score. They got an unopposed free kick into our box. Mandron cushions the ball. He actually had the time to just take the ball down, Mandron, or head it on goal himself, but he decides to a wee cushion header down to Gogic, because he's stretching kind of towards the back post. Can't quite connect. Terrible defending from us. 76th minute, another substitution from Rangers. It's Rothwell off for Finlay Curtis. Rothwell was just sent the ball straight out of play. Turns round, passes the ball, and it just goes straight out of play towards the technical area, and you got the feeling that it's just like, just follow that ball off, Joe. Just you follow that ball right off the park, right on the, right down the tunnel. It wasn't not a good time, Joe Rothwell, but he's played a lot of football since he first arrived, and I think we're running him into the ground probably because he knows how Russell Martin likes to play. But he wasn't having a good game. On comes Finlay Curtis, and I'm just trying to work out what is our positions, what the hell's happening, where is Finlay Curtis going to fit into all this, and we score. It's like St Mirren can't work it out either. 78th minute, I think it was. We won a corner, it gets cleared to the edge of the box, and Finlay Curtis just does what he does. He just scores. He just comes on and he scores a goal for Rangers this season. He's scored, I think, 2 friendlies, League Cup, Champions League, and that's him now scored in the league as well. He just hits the ball from the edge of the box, young Finlay, and it takes a deflection, a critical deflection as well, but he seems so practical, so pragmatic, that kind of, what will we do with this, but what are we going to do with this ball, Gaffer? What are we going to do in Finlay Curtis, like just one of the youngest players in the park? I'll just put this thing in the back of the net and we can argue about it later, right? We've confused them by substitution. It's 2 each. Well, that's the new 22nd century tactic. Just do so many subs that the opposition can't work out what it is. What you're Stephen Robertson, the guys, look, where are they playing Curtis? What the hell's happening? They're getting the wee kind of notepads and that out. And by the time they've worked out, we've scored. Optimism and hope for Rangers for about 30 seconds. We're in on goal again. 79 minutes, I can't even remember who it was. There's a shot on goal, kind of pushed over the bar by their goalie, and the away fans are giving it the big woo. It's a siege, for about 20 seconds. Suddenly, we're not tired anymore. There's suddenly, kind of hope, and maybe Celtic are going to play textbook football. And we look like we're playing textbook football, as in we've read it in a textbook, and we can't work out why it won't just happen on the park the way we've saw it in those diagrams and read about it in the textbook. Maybe Celtic will come and play as textbook football as well, and we can actually give them a doing. The optimism, will be a third straight 1-1 draws. Tav going to keep up his record of scoring in every domestic game he's played this season. Consistency, it's going to be 87th minute. We got a corner, more proddings from Tav, and Finlay Curtis is attacking, and he's tracking back from the right-hand side. He's got all the energy in the world. It's nice to be almost dominating a game. Gassama, I think he's kind of moved inside, which means he's played both wings and in the middle during the course of this game. Gassam, sorry, Gassman. 90th minute, Tav is a kind of shot type cross thing. Danilo, I think it's actually a shot moving towards goal, but Danilo gets a wee flick on, kind of diving header that goes into the goalkeeper's arms, and there's 5 minutes of injury time. You're thinking, we have got the momentum here, this is going to happen, but St Mirren were just as dangerous in injury time as ourselves, so you're waiting for the all-out assault. It doesn't really happen. Again, I don't know if it's part of this team, this thing they've been doing. Remember the Motherwell game last season? We get back to 2 each at Fir Park, and against St Mirren, when they beat us last season around about Christmas time into January. I think it's the last time that Crocker was saying that Danilo scored away from home for us. We come back to 1 each after a terrible first half, and it was like, that'll do us. There's no follow on. Anytime we score a goal, there's a brief flurry after it, and there's no kind of attempt to follow on and dominate the game and get more goals. I don't know. I think this team maybe lacks a bit of humility. I'm starting to have my suspicions about various characters in this team and who they might be and how it takes shape. And I think this is going to be a very interesting week in terms of who leaves as much as who's coming in. 91st into 92nd minute, Lyle Cameron is the last man. He just scored a goal and he's amazing. Sorry, I'm trying to cut. Scored the goal, but Lyle Cameron, all Scottish guys look alike to me. He tracks all the way back to shut down an attack deep in his own box or towards our byline. It's all out effort from Lyle Cameron, and it's a very open game. Both sides are going for it. 93rd minute, Phillips, substitute for St Mirren, normal sized young fella, wins a free kick from John Souttar, which just shouldn't happen. Out wide on our right hand side, gets floated in, and Alex Gogic wins a header yet again in our box. Butland, good saves, it's going towards the top corner. So from trying to get our first league win of the season, we're suddenly trying to stop our first defeat. Our first league defeat, our first domestic defeat of the season. They've all been defeats though, haven't they? They've all been defeats. Even when we beat Alloa 4-2, that was embarrassing. So it's drawn at Motherwell, drawn at home with Dundee. And then this, it's all bad stuff as far as most punters are concerned, certainly as far as the league's concerned and momentum's concerned. But I don't know, I'm not that bothered at this point in time. We get a corner in the 95th minute. Tav gets it into the box. It gets cleared to the edge of the box, and we're just about to Nick Walsh. That'll do it. That's it. That's 95 minutes and 20 seconds, whatever it was. He blows a whistle. There's boos from the away end. We're saving the first domestic win of the season for our favourite enemy. The Sky kind of cameras pan the home fans looking for some smiley faces. Don't actually get that many, and then they're just focusing on the away end, we get close-ups of Rangers. There's somebody looking a bit sullen, as if they might sit down in their seat and start crying. Nah, they're just going to stand in there, probably letting the crowd clear so they can get out the vomitory a bit more clearly, a bit more easily. They're wanting folk to be hurling stuff at the players, try to fight the police, try to get past the stewards, invade the park, and throw a sausage roll at Russell Martin or something like that. But it's not really happening. Everybody is either totally resigned, or it's we know that it's going to require patience. We know the level of refurb that's required. It's just. But then it all starts. Then I see it's always displaced my rage. I'm like, I'm not going to be tacky, silly, and common enough to lose the rag at the fact Rangers have dropped points or had a poor result. No, I'm above that. But I still manage to get it out somewhere else, don't I? And it's coming. It's the Sky cameras. So with a pan the Rangers crowd, they can't get anybody that's absolutely raging. This is all done to a kind of narration, a commentary from we're back in with the anchor and her two goons, if you like, the two pundits in there hoping to they're hoping for a riot off the park. That's not happening. So what they do is just start talking about psychology. The fact that Russell Martin has mentioned I hadn't even seen his pre-match interview, but he mentioned the word psychology. I rewound the whole thing to watch what he'd said, but he just mentioned the term psychology, and that's it. That was a riff. Never mind, we're talking about the funk. We're talking about the one. That was the thing in that show about the funk, the programme, the documentary about funk last night on the BBC. Bootsy Collins, James Brown, when Bootsy Collins with James, but they're talking about the one. You got to have this all about the one, and it's hitting that one note loudest, hitting the first note so loud that the next 2 or 3 notes will, by definition, be funky. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. It's going to make it funkier if you keep hitting that one. Not one louder. That's a different type of music. That's Spinal Tap, but it's you're going to get the Seinfeld theme tune correct with your slap bass. You got to hit that first note louder. That's what makes it funky. Right now with Rangers, it's 1-1. It's hitting that one, and Russell Martin, for me on Friday in the press conference, and again today towards the end of his pre-match, literally right before the match, interview with Sky, he talks about having to win the physical battle, having to dominate in the air, having to know the way St Mirren play, and you're going to have to earn the right to play football. Well, that's the one. He gets the one you have to hit hardest to let it. The next 2 or 3 notes is you getting on the ball and playing football because you've hit the one. You've started funky. You've started properly. But he made the mistake of mentioning psychology. This is why I want Russell Martin to succeed. If I'm going to be quick, I've got to declare an interest, declare a bias that goes beyond just the fact that obviously I want Rangers to win. And we're going to start winning again because we've got money, we've got the American backers. It's going to happen, but it's why I particularly want it to happen under Russell Martin, because his real one is growing up with an abusive, bullying jailbird dad, and then working his way through the English lower leagues, and eventually becoming like the captain of a side that wins the Championship playoff match at Wembley to get promoted into the English Premier League, the most expensive, the richest match and the most pressured match, I would say, in world football. The richest match anyway in world football, the most money involved in it in terms of like domestic league game. And also the pressure is unbelievable. And the English lower leagues, particularly the Championship, it'll have to be the most physically demanding league in the world, I would say, at times. Sometimes I'll watch a Championship game. It's not as bad just now, and I think there's more because the parachute payments, etc., is probably increasing the technical ability levels in the English Championship. But up until a few years ago, certainly when Russell Martin was playing, when he was with the Cafu of Norfolk, when he was becoming a legend at Norwich, who has spent time in the top flight, but also time in like the third tier and the second tier. It was like watching rugby league played with a round ball. The size of these guys, it was unbelievable. And this is a guy who has played hard, pressured games with, as he says himself, no technical ability, and become a hero at a Championship kind of level club. He's been talked about because he's vegan, he's Buddhist. I don't know. It's these people. It's anybody who's younger than 80 and is still, like using that term for a Chinese meal, or using the P word or something like that. You're doing it knowingly. You have no excuses. The wokes are trying to take over everywhere, apparently, so you must know what you're supposed to say according to the wokes, or according to just common bloody decency. It's that same willful pig ignorance we're getting, even in the commentary position today, as far as I'm concerned. He mentioned the word that he was talking about the players' psychology before the game, and it's freaked everybody out. It hasn't. Russell Martin is getting abuse because we're dropping points, right? He might be a shite manager. You never know. That's fine, but that's not how most of the abuse is delivered. That's not how it comes his way. From us, from the pundits, from opposition fans, it's always packaged up with like he's vegan, he's Buddhist, he votes green. Yuck, gads, I don't like that. So I'd never vote green, or not just now anyway. You don't hear me. I know folks. It goes back. An email the other day from somebody, or a message, a post saying it was from somebody whose avatar, their YouTube address was "send them all back," and it was having a go at Russell Martin for, but send them all back. That's your actual. That's how you want to be known. It's like the price of stuff. The pint of milk in the shops is just through the roof. That doesn't seem to be the problem. You don't actually realise what's happening. You don't hear me going on about Gaza, and I've not got watermelons on my avatars or anything like that. I'm not getting involved in that in a way that your classic woke lefty would be. I've never voted Green or SNP. It's like Brexit is the same. Leaving Scotland, leaving the British Union, leaving the European Union. There's good reasons to do both. I know I'm shooting off here, but I think it's relevant. There's good reasons to do both, but the reasons what were being given for both, and the people that were promoting it, just no thanks. It's kind of people that were bullied at school, or the actual school bullies. Were kind of promoting this stuff, their own personal fantasies or their own personal gain, and it just wasn't good. I'm not advocating or trans activism. Do you hear me saying that? I would have an immigrant living in my house. I don't think I need to have an immigrant living in my house for us still to make sure we look after people who are needing to escape from war-torn countries. No, but I want to have those conversations. Right? I don't want to invent arguments that shut down any acknowledgement of difference. And if you have a team full of, you know, players from Africa or of African heritage, continentals, people of different political leanings, different ages, maybe even different sexual orientations, you don't know, you're going to have to be more than a deliberately, willfully backwards mutant if you want to get a tune out of that team. And this, I need to declare my interest here, my kind of partiality. I'm far from completely reconstructed. You know, the film, my favourite film of all time is about bank robbers. You know, with big guns shooting each other and stuff like that. Raging Bull, a film about a boxer who, you know, would beat up his wife and stuff. I'm not exactly Mister Woke, Mister OTT when it comes to the PC, but I think when it's a pose, it's the willful embracing of ignorance, which isn't real ignorance. You do know, you know what you're saying, and that's what we're getting from not just Chris Sutton today, but Chris Boyd as well, doing nothing about it. The use of the word psychology. This is what it's very much the word pundits would use to praise Walter Smith, to praise Shankly, praise Jock Stein, Sir Alec Ferguson, whatever. The psychology there, the psychology. You know, he's done the mind games. What he said there about that, you know, Kevin Keegan, his players are going, no, Blackburn are going to lie down to Newcastle, and that, oh, Keegan's lost it. That's a psychology. Alec Ferguson, they're brilliant, but don't use the word psychology. As a manager, you have to do that in kind of monosyllabic stuff. It has to be a slick one-liner. It has to be, you know, working class in a way that almost doesn't exist anymore because of, you know, what's happened post-industrial Europe. But it's if you actually say psychology as a manager, before the game, Russell Martin just mentioned the fact that he's been working on the player's psychology. I mean, what else is he supposed to say? It's the media that are asking you, what have you been up to this week? We spoke to you after the Bruges game. You know, that was covered in the media. We spoke to you on Friday. What's the pre-match presser that's, you know, contractual at Ibrox or Auchenhowie? And now, all he's been doing for the last few days is training and talking to the players. He mentioned working their psychology. You know, and the pundits are quite happy to talk about Rangers players aren't up for it. They look disjointed. They don't look like they're getting into the game. They're no running back and forth. That's psychology, is it not? Yeah, but don't, for God's sake, don't use polysyllabic words if you're a manager. And Walter would batter us in training, and he would tear strips off us, scare the hell out of us if we weren't performing on the park, if we tried to take the piss. But then he'd put his arm around you, take you out for a drink. And he'd be the first one, a night out, a team night out. He'd be the first one up to the bar, first one up to sing a song. You know, he'd know when to put an arm around you. Nobody was saying, "Oh, that's psychology. That's great psychology." But as long as Walter Smith didn't come out and use the word psychology, he was obviously going to be fine. You know, it's like anti-intellectualism. It's like Khmer Rouge stuff. You know, let's execute everybody with specs because they might have read a book. Do they think they're better than me? But it's coming from people who do know better. And this is why I want Russell Martin to succeed, because we need this culturally. We need this as well. Rangers will get back to winning. I would just love it if it was Russell Martin that does it, because a lot of Rangers fans, it's not Chris Sutton's an ex-Celtic player. Chris Sutton, the line he's towing is being mimicked by so many Rangers fans, and Rangers fans get in touch with me as well. Not everybody. I mean, obviously, I only take a certain amount of stuff, a block folk or whatever, but it's depressing as hell. It's actually quite worrying as well. I'm all in with Big Russ as a person, because he could fight MD, and he's evolved. You know, this isn't intellectualism. It's just somebody that's got he's forward thinking. He does think, you know. But the way we savage today for having used the word psychology is something I think we should all be scared about. I know most of us are just giving it, oh, Chris Sutton talks crap and all that, but it has an effect. This stuff does have an effect on folk, and it has an effect on the abuse that's. I mean, Luke Shanley's in there too, exploiting Rothwell for being stupidly honest with him, for saying it's not what us. We didn't win the second balls. Luke Shanley, after the match, he's interviewing for Sky. What do you think the problem was today? Why couldn't you win the game? Oh, we're not winning second balls. But is that not what you said earlier, that you knew St Mirren were going to play like that? St Mirren were going to be physical and they would win high balls from free kicks and stuff like that. How did you know? I mean, I suppose you can talk about it all you want during the week, but you know, you've got to do your talking on the park. And this is Rothwell just going along with the line, with the tone that's been, you know, put to him by the interviewer, because Luke Shanley is a journalist and Joe Rothwell is just a footballer trying to be as honest as he possibly can, doesn't want to upset anybody. But they're talking about these. Why are you saying this? Why are you making out? Why are you talking big about you're going to win the second balls and you're going to be? Because you've been asked by the same journalists. It's questions that were asked as part of their contractual duties to talk to the press. That's why we had to play. We're going to have to win the second balls against. We know they're going to be physical. We know what to expect. Well, you didn't, did you? You said you were talking Mr. Big Time, like you were going to start winning the second balls against him, and didn't it happen? Did it not? Just answering the question that you were asking me earlier in the week. He's asking. Luke Shanley was asking Finlay Curtis and Joe Rothwell about the pressing, the pressure that they're feeling. They're feeling pressure. Is that no psychology? Feeling pressure in a football match, feeling pressure playing for a football team, is that not psychology? But no. Chris Boyd then condemns Rothwell for his self-condemnation. Like he should have. It's like he should have tried to hit us with the XG stat. Philip Clement. It was like it used to be last season. It was sports science. This week it's psychology. It's always VAR, which is it's technology. It's like anything that seems in any way progressive. But it's football itself as a result of technology, as a result of having the time off because of the Industrial Revolution and having something to do and getting a day off and a half day off on a Saturday. Every other Saturday's my half day off. Strips, nets, posts, marking out a playing field. All these things are technically technology, and VAR is part of that. And it's anything that seems in this just boring, constant need to chip away at anything that seems in any way thoughtful or feeling. It's just, football. You're spending your entire time watching 22 guys kicking a ball about. What is so hard about you? It's a total cop-out from real life, which has been doing the mines and working and what have you. So I don't know how anybody can start having a go at anybody about their psychology, about trying to look after players' psychology. It immediately characterised as he should be focusing on the shape of the team and the way they have to play. Russell Martin should be. No having to cuddle players. This is it in full time before they've interviewed Martin post-match. Still, Chris Sutton, I don't know what he was trying to do. Chris Sutton says, I don't know what he was trying to do in that second half. That's because we played better in the second half. He's just thrown on as many players as possible. He's made the substitutions that have got us back into the game, that have scored the goal and got a bit more pressure. We played a lot better in the first half. He's a problem solving, but that can't. I know it's their job. I don't watch Celtic games that aren't against Rangers, so Chris Boyd definitely does the same with Celtic. He winds up Sutton about Celtic apparently. I can't really stand watching that from anybody. And it's all pantomime stuff. There's a lot of people don't really care that much about football. They need to be entertained in this way. I don't find it entertaining at all. I find it totally disingenuous. It's pretty dangerous, and it leads to a lot of the shite that the players and the managers now have to take, who are real people and working a job. And it's immediately characterising. I want to go back. It's no enough that Rangers have dropped points. Their manager's a crackpot. He's a nutter. Sutton was dying to do that after his outburst after the Motherwell game, and his post-match press conference, Russell Martin, and now he's again referring back to something. He's thinking, I'll go with that if Rangers slip up today. I'd be worried. He's having to, he should be focusing on the shape of the team and the way they have to play, and not trying to cuddle players. That's just a total characterisation and lie. You're always working on the psychology of the players. You're always trying to make them feel better. There's always giving them a wee cuddle and that, and instead of telling, this is just horrendous. This is Isabel Oakeshott shit. So the reason I'm picking up this is because Rangers fans agree with Chris Sutton. They're also characterising Russell Martin this way, and it's terrifying. Progress barren, success killing. Sutton used to play for Norwich. Chris Sutton used to play for Norwich. So did Justin Fashanu. And when at Nottingham Forest, Justin Fashanu tried to speak to one of my all-time heroes, Brian Clough. He came out to him, basically told Brian Clough that he told Brian Clough, Justin Fashanu, told him he was gay and he was struggling with it as a player, and Brian Clough apparently almost refused to acknowledge what he just heard, because that was still late 70s, early 80s. If you're living in a heterosexual world, you basically don't even know that there's a world where people aren't heterosexual. It's almost like a natural reaction from Brian Clough. And this isn't why Justin Fashanu eventually tragically takes his own life, but it's part of the road towards that. It's basic psychology. Brian Clough, famously, and what I loved about Brian Clough was the story of him going into the dressing room at Nottingham Forest, like before a European Cup final or something, and telling John Robertson, I could get £2 million for you. You're the best player I've ever seen in my life. You will tear these teams. This team we're playing with. You'll tear them to pieces. Because John Robertson wasn't a very confident player, and John Robertson says, well, eventually he's got an assist in one European Cup final for the winner, and he scores the winner in the following season's European Cup final in the Bernabeu. He's like, I grew up thinking that was the stuff for Di Stefano and Puskas and all that, and here this guy's got me scoring the winning goal in the European Cup final. But in the same dressing room, in the same pre-match talk, he's gone up to Larry Lloyd and Kenny Burns, his centre-halves, and giving it used to biggest pile of overrated pish I've ever seen in my life. I'll be selling you first thing in the morning if I get any decent bids and all that. And because that would wind them up. They're a pair of big bam pots, brilliant defenders, absolutely brilliant defenders. So that was psychology. They could do that kind of psychology, but it couldn't deal with the fact that Justin Fashionu's gay. Neither could Justin Fashionu's brother. He's admitted as much. Heartbreaking documentary. His daughter, John Fashionu's daughter, interviewing her dad about her uncle. Justin Fashanu, that whole thing of confusing, homosexuality with being, untough or whatever, when you actually need to be tougher than most folk in society, especially playing top flight football in England in the 70s and 80s, as a black man who's also gay, out gay. That's just unbelievable. But his brother couldn't handle it, and he ends up, he's playing for the crazy gang and being as nasty as possible as he can to other players physically, because he thinks that's. Chris Sutton scored in Old Firm games. He scored many goals for Celtic, scored the Champions League, played the European final, played for England, and I think played the top flight in England. A great player, a fantastic player. But he'll be most remembered, by me anyway, maybe for a post-match interview in a kind of cubicle in Ayrshire in the end of 2002, 2003, like not besmirching the fact that Celtic had got to a European final just a few days earlier, but that should have been the emphasis. And he was talking about the fact that they've just been playing against, let's say, provincial opponents in their own patch, playing Kilmarnock at Rugby Park, and they've beaten Kilmarnock by 4 goals. But because Rangers, at the same time, have beaten another provincial team, Dunfermline, we've been playing them at home, we beat them by 5 goals, by 1 goal more. That meant the Dunfermline players were cheats. They'd laid down to Rangers. They totally packed it in. They wanted us to win the league, the whole Dunfermline team. He's just calling professional players cheats, fellow professionals cheats, saying that they'd let their own fans down. But it's just as easy to accuse, of course, Celtic losing the title by a couple of goals. That they couldn't score 2 more goals across the entire season. It's just as easy for Celtic fans if they were so inclined to label, Chris Sutton somebody who lay down and cheated as well. But it's poor psychology. It really is poor psychology. It's going to end up, if you don't deal with it, if you're psychologically gone, it's going to be something that affects your entire career. Glenn Kamara, what happened with him against Slavia Prague, and Rangers being one of the first teams, certainly in Scotland, to take the knee. I remember reporting the Ross County player for homophobic comments up at Dingwall, Everyone Anyone campaign. It's almost like we're converts since 1989. 1989 is far too late, obviously. It should never have happened, or sectarian signing policy. But it's almost like we've went completely the other way ever since we signed Maurice Johnson, and I'm all on board for it as well, and that's why I want Russell Martin to succeed for that. I'm no one who's blindly going anything progressive. I know there's all sorts of, I'm talking about the trans thing and all. It's such a massive just smokescreen. It's anybody who's trans is automatically a paedophile or a male rapist who's just hiding behind recent laws or SNP kind of laws that have been brought in. But the vast majority, there's so much crime of that nature happens by heterosexual male white men. We don't seem to want to deal with that. It's just the ones who are, every community has got people who are horrific, and it's almost like the crimes themselves don't count as much as the point scoring. And I feel as if this, I'm sorry to go on about it, but this is just, Chris Boyd and Chris Sutton think they're stupid, and they want to stay that way. They know better, and James McFadden, if you know the comedian, if you know the man I'm talking about, I'm in that audience. The the hamster Hammond, the Top Gear, the routine, the skits. I can't mention his name. I can't mention his name. He's the 'cause he's the last person. There's nature, and then there's this guy. If you mention their name, they'll just slaughter you for not thinking for yourself and for trying to ever associate yourself with them and making it you're as clever as them because you've watched their stuff. But that, if you've seen it on YouTube, whatever, the routine with slaughtering the hamster Hammond and Clarkson and Top Gear. I'm in that audience. I'm one of the people. I was there that night. It was the Citizens in Glasgow. It was filmed. And I'm in that audience. I'm one of the folk that's laughing away, really smugly, left wing Guardian reader. But it's James McFadden is becoming that the hamster Hammond gets it because he just sits and lets the other two go on, lets them be totally bigoted and say the things that they're saying. And he just sits there and laughs and doesn't do anything about it. And James McFadden, I like James McFadden. He's really clever. He's really intelligent. But he should be in there correcting these buggers more often than he does. He's actually worse because he knows better. It's all very well say you're feeling good in training, but St Mirren are up for a battle. This is, I think, what he came up with today. How do you get the time to work? How do you get the time to work in psychology? It's all very well saying you're feeling good in training, but St Mirren are up for a battle. It's a false opposition. What else are we supposed to have done between our last game and this, except train? Except, right, guys, you've got to think more positive. Right, guys, the idea that you can't do anything. Like, if you're trying to be, St Mirren are complete animals. They're totally backwards. That's the way to be. St Mirren are a very clever football team, and they obviously worked really well in their psychology as well. It's a bit of an insult to Stephen Robertson as well, this idea that they're all sitting eating raw meat and that's all they've got to offer. Sorry, folks, it's just no arguments. And the stats this time, the main stat, of course, is that Rangers drew 1 each. We only scored as many goals as St Mirren. But in the last few setbacks we've had, people have been piling in with the amount of shots we've conceded and the lack of XG as well. So that's, you're looking for signs of improvement. 72%, 72% possession we had today. 13 shots each. The teams, we had 6 on target. St Mirren had 4. Our XG was 1.77 to St Mirren's 0.91. So we should nearly have beat them 2-1. Celtic fans are also worried. They think something's coming for them right now. They're having their own little internal worries about Brendan Rodgers. Will he walk away? Some of them probably want Brendan Rodgers to walk away and not getting the backing from the boards. But they're doing fine. They've got 9 points out of 9 so far, which means we are 6 points behind them. That's just 2. That's 2 wins. 2. Russell Martin post-match on Sky. Perhaps he needs to be more bullying to the press. Luke Shanley's in there trying to be all kind of authoritarian on him, less open, but God forbid you should actually treat people respectfully. This fucking backward attitude that's, if you try to be nice to folk, you try to be even a bit open, that's a bit woke, I suppose, it's got me as well. I'm being bitter as well, but he's calm, he's cool, and I like it. Russell Martin in his post-match presser. We can't keep starting so slow. Welcome to Rangers in the 2020s, Russell. This is not your fault. Rangers starting slow in these kind of games. It's just something that's been happening for years now. Nico needs to deal with the ball. This is St Mirren's goal. It gets lumped forward. He needs to deal with that. We spoke to him on Friday about this. This is something talked about, says Russell Martin. So he's kind of throwing the players under the bus. He also talks about Gassman not having his best game as well. And then there's the whole thing with Igaman. But he's absolutely bang on about the definition of courage, which later his actual post-match presser with the whole press becomes the British definition of courage. I love this because it's something I'm a victim of as well. I think like this, just got to go there and get a fight. I love rugby. I love watching rugby union. I love watching rugby league. I don't understand a thing about the sports, but I can see the defending that goes on and the amount of physical effort is a massive part of the game. I love boxing as well. I love watching the boxing. If I want to see a fight, I'll watch a fight, a sport that involves a fight. This idea that it's about battering folk and being physically dominant, it's a great way to win a game, and I'm really happy if Rangers are technically overmatched by who they're up against, maybe in Europe or something like that, or maybe against Celtic, and if all we can do is get in there and try and rumble them up and upset them, then that's our job. That's what we should be doing. I've got nothing against St Mirren for playing the way they play, but there definitely is a problem, I think, with the British psychology. Stuart Pearce is a hero because he goes in there battering into folk and what have you. The idea that you're hard as nails, and then you have your creative players who are different. They've all got to be kind of weak. Well, they can't fight their way out of a paper bag if it comes to a dust-up, but they're tippy-tappy. jinky players and what have you. Whereas you get your Argentinians or your Italians and that, and they're just all vicious, hard as nails, and then can change in the flick of a second as the game requires to being great technical artists. And that's what's required. It's that change in pace, the change in mentality that's got to happen in game is something that we're not very good at doing in Britain. And the crowds demand it as well. We like to see good clattering tackles, hard tackles, a lot of hard running and all that. But if it's not been done in the right direction, if it's not been done in the right way, if it's not creating, then it's not. He's having to convince the players to play the way he wants them to. That's maybe a bit worrying for us that he's still having to do that. He says it's not all about running and blocking and fighting, the stuff the guys are talking about. I think he means the players in the dressing room, says Russell Martin. It's about having the courage to take the ball and stick to the work, stick to the plan. It shouldn't take a setback, like conceding a goal and a reset as we had at half time, for us to do that, he says. So I like that. I like the attitudes. He's obviously trying to take us to a different kind of level, just get us playing football. The courage is to get on the ball, where we should just blast like St Mirren out the way. We don't get down to their level. We've got talented football. We're paying for footballers who are more technically gifted than anything St Mirren has. So go for our technical gifts, make that their priority, and I think you can see that happening. That's why we're getting stuck. We're not used to, but we're not adapting our game to our technical gifts. So you end up with gaps, you end up with looking a bit slow, looking a bit dithering, and St Mirren, who are same manager, same template, they've got their game plan. There's a lot of continuity there. They've got it down off pat. I'm just hoping we'll eventually get that continuity, and it's obviously what the manager's aiming at as well. But he then was asked about Hamza Igaman, the substitutions he was making, and he was quite happy to tell Luke Shanley that Hamza just turned around and told him, "I'm injured, I can't go on, I've done something to my quads." And he was very calm about it. He was almost kind of smiling, and he's saying there's an offer in for him this week. I don't know if it's the same one that Lille wanted to take him on loan. Well, there's been another offer for him, but he was almost kind of laughing. The manager, the head coach, Russell Martin, as he was saying, I just said he couldn't come on, and maybe his head's been turned. We've got a lot of players like that just now. We've got a few players whose eyes are elsewhere when they should be here at the club. So this was quite the reveal. Disappointed in Hamza, not wanting to come on, not wanting to get himself injured, it seems like. But maybe there'll be a scan or something tomorrow. We'll find out he had actually done in his quads. But I don't expect to see him playing in Bruges, and I hope we get him out the door as quick as possible. I'm not overly fussed about the shape. He's saying it's the concept of the game that's most important. He said that in another post-match interview. But he was talking in both of them about the tension. The players have got a lot of tension, and he has to get the players to feel less tense. Psychology. Going into these games, he's got to relax. Relax. Be yourself from the off. And it seems to me there's a kind of endemic attitude problem in the dressing room, which we're all slagging Rangers for years. For years now, we've said that these players would get any manager sacked. So Raskin at the end of the game today, after one of his own mistakes. And this was the thing I think with Chris Boyd saying, I don't see the Rangers players working hard enough. Well, the last 5 minutes of the game, Lyle Cameron and Nico Raskin had covered half the length of the pitch just to make up, to do something for their teammates that apparently they weren't working hard enough for. But in Raskin's case, it was because of his own mistake just inside the St Mirren half. He had to chase right back to his own goal line to resolve that mistake. But as the final whistle goes, Nico Raskin's down there, just hands in his hips, hands in his head, absolutely dying with the amount of effort he's put in. And when we drew 2 each with St Mirren towards the end of last season, Nico Raskin scored. His celebration was very kind of, I'm starting to get the feeling that he might be, with what's happened to him being dropped after the Motherwell game this season. Lots of big talk about Nico Raskin and pressers, and the manager's going out of his way to say how great a guy he is and how much he's learned about him and all that, but he's also calling him out when he gets something wrong. And I think Nico's insisted he wants to play at 6 when the manager wants him to play at 8, and there's been rumours about various other reasons for him falling out, and maybe Nico Raskin is wanting away. But I think the one thing's for sure is I think he thinks he's running the club. I think he thinks he's running the team, Nico Raskin. It's just a barroom kind of attitude, and I feel as if maybe there's a war of wills going on there, and Russell Martin has to win that. Even if Nico Raskin does go out the door this week, I can't say I'd be greatly bothered, even though he was probably our man of the match today and he's put in more than anybody else. But all in all, there is a definite feeling that these players aren't convinced by this coach, but I feel as if I'm more convinced by the coach, even without all the political stuff. I'm more convinced by the coach than I am by the players. So I hope he gets as many of his own players as he possibly can. I hope he gets another couple of players in this week, and eventually the Russell Martin men will outnumber those that have stayed behind from previous regimes and might have a problem with them. He was saying that a lot of the players' heads have been turned, and he needs to find out who's fully committed. That's a bad sign. That's worrying. The key is talking about the fact it's far too early in the year to have played this amount of games. That's one thing that really worries me as well. He's talking about, it's only the end of August. Usually you'd only have played 2 games by now. No, in Scotland, Russell. You're talking as if you're the Swansea manager or Southampton manager. This is, you've got the calendar, you get the schedule, you know how many games Rangers have got to play and in what competitions by this time. He's doing all this while he's trying to change the tactical DNA of the team. It is difficult, but it now has to be next week. That's the one thing I've got to admit, I'm finding it incredibly interesting what's going on just now with Russell Martin trying to change the tactical DNA of the team, but it needs to be next week. He needs to win next week. Don't get stuffed on Wednesday, but for Christ's sake, don't go through. Getting some new players, clear out some old ones during the week, and then announce yourself, Russell, in the game that will make you famous and make all your other ills forgiven if you win it. It's always the way I predicted it would happen anyway. You know, the John Martin Solidaire thing. I did this after the League Cup final that we won, not last season, the season before, when Philip Clement, a James Tavernier goal, finally won his League Cup for the first time since we'd been in the lower leagues, and it meant we'd completed the set. And I did this analogy about John Martin. We've got Russell Martin as manager, John Martin with a Y, a famous British musician, British-Irish musician, Scottish-English Irish musician, and there's a concert he does in the Rock Palace, German TV, kind of Ogre Whistle Test, but there's a crowd there. It's in a theatre, and it's 1978, and he's doing probably his second most famous song, Solidaire, written about Nick Drake, his fellow musician and his friend, who's a bit of a nervous breakdown and would eventually kill himself at the time when John Martin wrote this song for him, how he feels he's walking through Solidaire. And there's this YouTube clip, it's about 8-9 minutes long, and it's taken from this Rock Palace performance. There's the actual recording of Solidaire from the album Solidaire, and there's various other recordings of him, playing it sometimes with Danny Thompson on bass, but this time he's just on his own. And this is the best version. This is the one I would listen to most often. Is this from 1978, the Rock Palace performance, John Martin Solidaire, and at the beginning of it, he's in this concert and people are shouting out from the audience, Solidaire, and he tries to retune his guitar so he can play it, and the string breaks. The string breaks in his guitar, and it's just, I don't know, there was something about, when he was winning the League Cup that day, we'd completed the set of all 3 domestic trophies, as well as having been in the Champions League and having played in a European final, since being in the bottom tier of Scottish football. It felt as if it kind of completed something in a really beautiful way. And it always reminds me of this gig, and I think this is what I want to see us do next week against Celtic. This is why I don't know, it's the way I feel about Russell Martin. We've all known, we've been told all summer that it will take a while, and we know what Russell Martin's trying to do. We've all claimed that there's endemic problems in the Rangers dressing room, the Rangers attitude, so I don't know how we can think he's going to fix it straight away. But if he's to do it next week, it's going to be as beautiful as that kind of John Martin Solidaire performance. It's John Martin that he's kind of beautifully chaotic and most testily and slightly drunken, worst and best. He's just one man and a guitar on the stage, and it's been filmed on television. It's probably live on television. There's a massive audience there, and his fucking string breaks. He's screwed. And there's a large, expectant and cheeky audience. He's doing a bit of slap bass as well, it has to be said, on his guitar, but most of all, they love him. They love him. They're patient because they love him and because they know what's coming. They know the song that he's trying to sing. He's trying to tune his guitar for this song, and this string breaks, it snaps, and he has to retune the guitar. And it's actual genius. Musicians are talking about how he manages to fit a new string and retune the guitar, all while having kind of banter with the audience. But the banter, he's a nasty bastard. John Martin's a horrible person in so many ways. In fact, he's a horrible person almost in absolutely every aspect of his life, except even right up to the moment where he starts singing a song. And I've seen him various live performances on YouTube. I never saw him live. He's dead now, obviously, drank himself to death. But when he would finish performances on All Grey Whistle Test, etc. These beautiful kind of blues, trad folk songs or whatever, and you thought, oh, that's absolutely gorgeous. And the second they would finish it, he would go, right, where's the money? He would have to make a joke. Right, get us paid, we're out of here, And it really is so incongruous, and it shattered the illusion of what he did. It was almost like he was embarrassed to be so honest with his affections and his feelings and his music so poetic. He'd a confused life. His mum and dad split up when he was wee, and he spent half his life in England, half his life in Glasgow, and that was confusing for him. But he was a horrible bandpot. Stole his wife's career and stuff like that just to get a recording contract. Total drunk, would get into fights and stuff like that. And a couple of pals, he actually reminds me of, one no longer with it, but he's the song, the music. It's like when you get the continuity announcer coming in. You've just watched an amazingly like the climax of a series you've been watching. It's the final episode, and there's this amazingly kind of emotionally draining final episode, and you're sitting there and they have the really appropriate music going over the end titles to kind of soothe you back. And then the continuity announcer comes in and goes, The Price is Right repeats on ITV4 tonight at such a. Christ, it totally ruins the mood. And John Martin would do that with his own stuff because he was the depths of emotion in his song would do it, and he's doing it before it as well. It's actually like he's almost enjoying this thing of having to banter with the audience. Some guy shouts something cheeky when the string breaks, and he's like, "What cock? What are you saying, cock?" Like he's wanting to fight him. And then he's slagging all the old blues singers, BB King and all that. I think other guitars' names and all that, Lucille and what have you. That's a lot of old bollocks. But this guitar's it's a piece of shit basically, and he's throwing it about and everybody's laughing and what have you. Really uneasy, and he's retuning this guitar, and it's this technical malfunction. Everybody's laughing at his jokes, but it's a small price to pay. This technical malfunction. It's part of the fun for the audience, for the people who know what's that, and it's giving them more time in his company, and it increases the anticipation. Rangers beating Celtic, I've seen it before. Rangers winning league titles, I've seen it before. But having lost our instrument for a while, and hearing and seeing it being disassembled and slated and battered about by everybody, and then seeing it being restocked and expertly reassembled and retuned, knowing that the kind of atonal plucking and clunking, twanging will eventually really quickly evolve. Knowing from our entire fibre, the core of our being knows exactly that it's going to evolve into a tune that's even more gorgeous, so much more kind of uplifting and gloriously regenerative when it takes full form again. You're impatient. How the fuck do you think I feel about the prospect of another project, of starting another project with another manager? I don't think the guitar is getting retuned right now. We've seen it happen. We're watching it happen. And it might require another couple of plectrums before the end of August to be fully mellifluously melodic. But we've got enough to play our greatest hit again. What we did to Pilsen at Ibrox, we can do to Celtic at Ibrox. Then no more kind of solid air, no more depression. Just a familiar tune made so much more gorgeous by us having lost it for a while, by us having lived its lyrics.